Hey everyone, it's Lisa Mears here. Today I'm going to be making some fall themed thank you cards using some products from scrapbook.com. I previously showed these products in an unboxing video of scrapbook.com's newest releases, and if you want to check out that video, I'll put a link to that video at the top right corner of this video as well as in the video description. So let's take a look at the products I'll be using for my cards today. Starting off, I'll be using the Joyful Wishes stamp set and matching die set. This stamp and die set has a large high and some smaller sentiments that you can use for your cards. There's also some stamps in there, such as flowers and butterflies, and some coordinating dies to cut them out. I'll also be using the Joyful die set, and it has this large circle frame die. And there are also some flower dies as well as butterflies and the words thank you. And here is what it looks like when it's put together. I also have the Grateful, Thankful, and Blessed die set. So there are 3 sentiments included in this set. I'll go ahead and turn this over so you can see what it looks like when it's put together. You can cut out the outline of the words and also cut out the inside and add different color pieces of cardstock to create a multicolor look. And I'll also be using the Cozy Foliage dies. So you can see there are several different style leaves that you can use for fall as well as winter. And last but not least, I'll be using 2 paper pads. These are the Joyful Collection paper pads. Here's the pattern paper, so you can see all of the beautiful fall colors and lots of floral prints. There's some solids in here as well. Love those butterflies, they're so pretty. So this is a 6x8 paper pad. It has a total of 16 patterns, and there are a total of 40 sheets in this paper pad. As I said, this is 6x8, but it also comes in an A2 size, which is 4¼ by 5½ inches for the paper. And then here is the solid pad that matches all of those beautiful patterns that you saw just a moment ago. If you are interested in purchasing any of the products that you see here, check the description box below for product links. I always appreciate when you use my links because it does help support me. Let's go ahead and make some cards. I'll be making 4 cards with these products today. And my first card is based off a card sketch. Here's the card sketch that I'm using today. It's the Mojo Monday Sketch 542. If you're not familiar with card sketches, you can just search Pinterest for card sketches and a bunch should pop up. If you're ever in a slump and you're stuck and you can't figure out where to start, using card sketches is always a good starting point. So here I'm using a couple of the solids first. So I have that reddish orange piece. I cut that to 4¼ by 5½, and then the dark green I cut to 4⅛ by 5⅔, and I layered those together. I also have this beautiful floral print that I cut to 4 by 5¼ and I'm going to layer that on top. So basically I'm starting out with 3 different mats, 2 solids and 1 print, and I love the way those solid mats, they just bring out all of those colors in that pattern paper. I also have this lighter orange piece. This one I cut to 2½ by 5¼ and I'm going to put that directly in the middle vertically on that card panel. And the checkerboard yellow and orange piece, I cut that to 2½ by 5¼ and I'm going to put that horizontally at the bottom portion of that card panel. So I am going to have a circle on top, so I just held that circle piece over top just to make sure I had my checkerboard piece far down enough so you can still see the pattern paper and that the circle was not going to cover it. Using the circle frame, I die cut it out of white cardstock and this green leaf pattern paper. And I'm going to use the frame from the green pattern paper and the white inside circle. And I'll use those 2 for this particular card. Now, because that circle cuts out a frame, if you wanted to make this frame a shaker card, you can totally do that by adding some foam and acetate to the back of the circle. But I'm going to make flat cards today and not make any shakers. I was pretty tempted to make a shaker since you guys know that I love to make shakers, but I wanted these to be quick and easy cards. So I am just adding the frame and adding the inside piece to my card panel. So next I have all of my die cuts already pre-cut. I'm going to start with my sentiment. I like using these scrapbook.com stack and sort trays to sort my die cuts as well as my dies. They're so handy and they do stack on top of each other. Okay, so the thank you word die, I have the shadow piece cut out of the pattern paper. The next layer I cut out of that orangey red solid cardstock, and I'm just going to layer that onto the pattern paper. And then the last layer for the word thank you is the smaller outline, and I die cut that out of the light orange solid cardstock, and I'll go ahead and layer that on as well. So when you layer this top piece on to the solid, thicker die cut thank you, you want to make sure that you align the right edge of the word die with the right edge of the shadow. So you can see how it's lined up on the right side, and that's so that you can see the shadow effect on the left. So here I'm going to do it again by taking the actual word outline and just lining it up on the right side of that shadow, and you can see the drop shadow there on the left. Now I'm going to work on the flowers, and I die cut the flowers out of the solid cardstock, and I'm just inking up the edges because I think just inking up the edges adds more depth to the cardstock pieces. So I'm just taking a finger dauber because these die cuts are so small. I don't need a real large ink blending brush. This finger dauber will do just fine, and I'm just adding the ink to the edges. So I'm using my scrapbook.com inks. I'm using the Autumn Leaves ink, which is an orange ink for the orange flowers, and then I'm using the pine ink for the green leaves. And I'm also going to be using the Autumn Leaves ink for the yellow butterfly. I'm going to glue that yellow butterfly to a solid butterfly piece, and the solid I cut with an orange cardstock. So I'll just layer that together, and then I'll go ahead and put the flowers together. So I'm just going to put a dab of glue right in the center of the flower, and then add the circular center piece to that flower. There are two circular pieces so you can build some color. There's a larger one and a smaller one for both the larger and the smaller flower. So I'm using the darker orange for the larger piece and yellow for the smaller piece that goes on the top. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back of the other flowers and add the stem. And you can even layer up the flowers if you wanted to because they come in 3 different sizes. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up this card. So I'm going to add the thank you to the center. So right now I'm just positioning everything where I want it to go before I glue it down. So I'll add a few flowers there on the right as well as on the left with the leaves. And once I have everything in place, I'll start gluing everything down to that white circle. I am tucking some of the stems underneath the thank you. Once I have them glued down, I'll go ahead and add the thank you, and then I'll tuck the other stems on the right side underneath the word as well. And then I'll add the butterfly. I'll add this entire layer to an A2 size white card base, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I'm going to start out doing some stamping using the Joyful Wishes stamp set. I'm going to stamp out some of the leaves and flowers that are in that set. I'm using the scrapbook.com pear ink for the leaves, and I will use the scrapbook.com buttercream for the flower solid stamped images. So the flowers that are in this stamp set are layered stamps, and I am using the solid right now in a lighter orange ink, and then I'll come back in with the layered piece in just a few minutes after I stamp this butterfly, and I'll use a darker ink for the actual outline of the flower. So the butterfly, I'm using the daffodil ink from scrapbook.com. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove those stamps from the Misti and place the flowered outlines on top of the solid stamps, and I'll ink those up with the darker orange ink. So when I'm doing layered stamping, I always like to do the lighter color ink at the bottom and then the darker for the top outline layer. So this color that I'm using here is the Autumn Leaves ink. There's also a smaller stamp for the inside of the flower, so I'm just lining that up, and I'll also use the Autumn Leaves ink to stamp that inside piece. I'll use the coordinating dies to die cut those stamps. So you can use the high stamp that's in the stamp set, but I'm going to use the dies, and it's just die cut them. So you have the shadow and then you have the top layering piece. I die cut them out of two different color orange pieces of solid cardstock, and I'll go ahead and glue those together. So for this card, I am going to be using the Mojo Sketch 502. I have a piece of flower pattern paper, and I cut that to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to add that to a piece of the reddish orange solid, and that solid is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I'll add that to a solid dark green, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Next, I have the checkerboard yellow and orange that I cut to 4 by 1 3/4, and I also have a piece of the orange, the dark orange cardstock that I cut with a Pretty Pink Posh scallop water die, and I'm just adding that to the bottom of that checkerboard pattern paper. I'm going to snip off the edge here so that it aligns evenly, and then that is going to go towards the bottom of the card panel. So I'll go ahead and add that, and once I add that, I will go ahead and add the circle outline and the circle piece, the solid circle. So I am using the leaf pattern from the previous card. So when it cut out the circle, it cut out the inside, and that's what I'm using here. But I also chose to use a piece of dark orange cardstock for the frame of the circle. And I chose that color because it matches the same cardstock in the word high. I'm going to add the word high to the center, and I'm also going to add the butterfly stamped image so that it's sitting on the dot on the eye. I'm going to add the two flowers to the lower left-hand corner as well as the leaves. I'm going to use one of the smaller sentiment stamps that are included in the stamp set. This one says, "Thank you so much," and I'm just going to position it there on some white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp it out with the Autumn Leaves ink. That orange ink matches all of those orange colors in that card, so that's why I chose using the orange ink. After I stamp out that sentiment, I will trim it down with my scissors and add it to my card. I will add that panel to an A2 size white card base, and that will complete this card. Moving on to my next card, I'm using the Cozy Foliage die set. I went ahead and die cut these autumn leaves out of different color solid cardstock from that Joyful solid paper pad, and I'm going to do some ink blending. You can see here the leaf on the left has some ink added, and the leaf on the right does not, and you can see the difference between the two leaves. The one with ink just has more depth to it. So I'm going to use the Waffle Flower Shader Plus brushes. These brushes have a very small brush at the end, and they're perfect for adding ink to your die cuts. These leaves actually have some embossed lines on the die cut, so I just went over those lines with the Waffle Flower shader brushes. So here I'm adding some of the Autumn Leaves ink to those lines on these orange leaves, and then I'm using a finger dauber with the same color ink and adding ink around the edges of those leaves. I will repeat the process with all of my leaves. So I'll bring in the next set of leaves and do the same thing. I love these Waffle Flower shader brushes because they have a very thin tip and they're easy for getting into the little lines on the die cuts. I previously did a full video covering these Waffle Flower shader brushes, and I'll link it here at the top right hand corner in case you want to check that out. But it basically goes over all of the different shader brushes, and I use them actually with stenciling to apply different color inks to my stencils. So I inked the rest off camera, and now I want to add some more depth to these leaves. So I'm squeezing out a little bit of white acrylic paint onto my mat and adding some water. I didn't add enough water here, so I'm adding a little bit more water and mixing that up to make this paint a little bit more thin so that I can easily flick it onto these leaves to add some more depth. So I'm just putting the paintbrush in that paint mixture and then flicking the top of that paintbrush where all of that paint is splattering onto the leaves. And this will dry very quickly because it's just a very thin layer of paint. So I'm going to hold this up close so you can see this a little bit better. You can see what that looks like. For the sentiment, I die cut the word thankful out of some white cardstock and some green cardstock. You can see that that die provides an outline, and it also cuts the letters out. The letters are sitting in the tray. And then I die cut the shadow piece out of white cardstock. I'm going to use the white outline and glue it to the white shadow. Next, I'm going to take the green letters that came out of the die cut when I die cut the green piece. I'm going to add them back to the inside. So I'm just putting glue on the inside of those letters, and then I'm just going to pop all of those green letters into place. And for the green outline, I went ahead and added it to white cardstock for the shadow, and I added the white letters inside that outline. For my card panels, I'm using a piece of the striped pattern paper, and I cut that to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and I'm adding it to a piece of dark green solid cardstock that I cut to 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I'm going to add the thankful word going across the center, and I'm going to add all of the leaves around the word thankful in a circle. So here I was just trying to decide which die cut I wanted to use, and I decided to go with the one with the white outline. And once I had everything positioned where I wanted it to go, I started gluing all the leaves down first. And after I add all of the leaves, I will add the word thankful to the top. I'm going to add 2 more leaves to the sides, and I'm going to cut off some of the bottom just so that I don't have extra stem extending through the word thankful. So here I'm going to cut off part of the bottom one here just because there's not a lot of room there on the sides, and I didn't want to have the stem hanging down. And now that all the leaves are in place, I'll go ahead and add my die cut word across the top. Next, I'll add this card layer to an A2 size white card base, and that will complete this card. I love the way this card turned out. I love all of those beautiful fall leaves and all of those different colors. Since I had a few more leaves left over, I wanted to go ahead and make another card using the second thankful sentiment. So I have a piece of flower pattern paper that I cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I'm backing the word thankful up on a piece of solid white cardstock, and the white is 4 1/8 by 1 1/4. I thought that it made the sentiment stand out more when it's backed on the white rather than just putting it on that busy pattern. And then I'm going to take the 3 leaves and I'm just going to tuck them under the word thankful at the top right of that word. And once the leaves are glued down, I'll go ahead and add the word thankful. I took a piece of twine and added it in a bow. I'm adding a glue dot behind the knot in the bow, and I'm going to add that bow to the top of the word thankful right below the leaves. And then I will add that to an A2 size white card base. So that will complete all of the cards that I made with the Joyful collection over at scrapbook.com. I hope you liked my cards today. They are perfect for thank you cards for the fall season. If you're interested in any of the products I've used today, check the description box of this YouTube video for product links and on my blog at lisamearsdesigns.com. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like videos like this, be sure to click that subscribe button so that you can see more. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.